Looking to up your real estate investing game? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sub 2 Deals Show with your host, Sub 2 expert William Tingle.
Hey, Sub-Tours. My name is William Tingle of Sub2Deals.com. I would like to welcome you to this episode of the Sub2 Deals Show, where we talk about all things subject to. Now, occasionally, we will cover other real estate investing topics, but it's always something to help you with your real estate investing business. Now, today is another episode in our Real Investor series, where we feature real investors sharing real stories and actual deals. And these guys are investors doing deals all across the country. They don't have any boot camps or courses to sell you, just real tips and strategies and the things that are working today in their markets. And they'll work for you too. So just pay attention and take lots of notes. My guest today is Tom Ely. Tom is a real estate investor in the Memphis, Tennessee area. He's been investing for a little over 6 years and has been full-time for 4 of those. Tom likes subject to. He sounds like he's done a bunch of it, but we're going to talk about all of it today. So Tom, welcome to the Sub2 Deals Show.
Hey, William. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, I'm excited about talking to you today. You and I have a little bit in common. We talked a couple of weeks ago, and I actually lived in Memphis for a couple of years. That's a great place. Didn't do any investing there, but interestingly enough, was exposed to the we buy houses thing. We bought our house. We moved to Bartlett. I worked for restaurant management and was transferred to Georgia about 8 months into owning the house. And we didn't have any equity. And I remember my real estate agent saying to me, maybe you need to call the We Buy Houses guys on the signs. And I was like, well, I always wondered what those guys do. Now, ultimately, we wound up renting our house out and then selling it. But it's interesting that when I lived there was my first real exposure to the Bandit sign thing. So that's
yeah, I think the house you had, I even as the crow flies, it's only a few miles away from where I live, my personal residence.
Yeah,
got a lease option house that's literally, I think you could throw rocks between the two houses.
Yeah. This house was only a couple of years ago, a couple of years old when we bought it, and it was a nice place and a nice little neighborhood. The kind where you walk out in the street in the evening and meet your neighbors and do that sort of thing. I expect times have changed a little bit. I know Memphis is pretty transitional around there, so I expect that's more of a rental neighborhood now.
Some parts, I don't know. That's on the edge. It's actually just outside the city limits of Bartlett. Mm-hmm. Edge there, county only.
Right.
It's I'll put it this way. After you learn about me, it's a place I would still invest. Because my buy box is very small.
Mm-hmm. I got you. I know exactly what you're talking about. Every place isn't a good place to buy. You need to learn your area and learn where the best places are. So yeah, that's absolutely true. Well, listen, man, I know we can talk real estate all day. That's the way investors are, but tell us about you. We got you on here today. So tell us about your background, your family, what you did before real estate.
Background. Let's see. Born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, home of the blues, birthplace of rock and roll. I started playing guitar at 13, as you can probably see some guitars here. I've got a little bit of a problem there. Guitars now. Before real estate, career-wise, I did 20 years in information technology. I was both an engineer and a manager. I have been married for this October, it'll be 20 years to my lovely wife, Frances. We have Ty is 16, Audrey's 11, and Ace is 5. And let's see, like you said, I've been active investor for about 6 years and full-time 4 years. I was telling you, January 3rd, 2017. Don't forget that date. Last day I was corporate America.
Oh yeah, congrats. I know that's a good way to go out for sure. Yeah. So tell me, you spent a lot of time doing IT stuff, that sort of thing. What got you interested in real estate?
Well, IT was a good career. I was really content in what I did. I made good, especially in Memphis here. We have a really low cost of living. I was making a 6-figure salary, so I wasn't hurting. We were doing, pretty good. But then the company that I worked for is a brokerage firm. We got put up for sale by the parent company. And I was manager at that time. And the engineers that reported to me, they kind of, like I would say, they were kind of out on the proverbial ledge, right? And here I am trying to talk them back in, right? But really, without telling them, I was out there with them. not knowing what's going to happen. Usually when a company's getting bought out, the people that being getting acquired are, handed the pink slip, severance packages, stuff like that. So I was nervous on that, a lot of thinking, and I didn't like that feeling. It worked out fine. The company that bought us, Raymond James, whose name was on the stadium of the Super Bowl the other day, they were a good company. They kept me for the knowledge I had. I wasn't unhappy with the people. I was treated well, but it definitely was more corporate than what I was used to. And so you take that feeling that I had of because I was very content in my job, sometimes being content and complacent is not good. I was content and complacent, and then my world was rocked by that. And then this corporate, I said, I want something different. I can't be, doing this until quote unquote, retirement age. Mm-hmm. And so I sought something different. And there's a longer period of time, there's a lot of thoughts and couldn't think of what I wanted to do. And I ended up with real estate.
So how did you, something I know for me personally, I was in a similar situation, not in IT. I've been in the restaurant business for 20 years. And I actually got my start in the restaurant business as a teenager. And restaurants funny, if you, especially in the old days, now I'm not sure about now, but in the old days, if an assistant manager quit, the manager just go, I don't want to work tonight. Who's the best employee I got? You want to be a manager? And they would just snatch you up, give you a tie and a vest, and you were off. And that's how your career would get started. And if you didn't pay attention, you'd look up in 5 years or 10 years and you were making decent money, so much so that it would be hard to just leave and go start somewhere else, make the same money. So they had you hooked.
That's the golden handcuffs, right?
So, for me, I was just so sick and tired, and I just happened to be up at 2:00 one morning and a Carlton Sheets infomercial came on, and I ordered the course and just fell into real estate investing. So what happened to you? How something made you go real estate? That's it. So what?
Okay. So I'd actually been doing some private lending before that. So there was a flipper here and lending to, and I think I'd asked him and he pointed me to a boot camp, and I ended up going to that boot camp, and it was short sale boot camp. And that's what got me started. Out of that, I signed up with the mastermind and coaching program and started from there. I don't do short sales anymore. I hate them.
My hate of short sales is almost as documented as my distaste for lease options, which we'll talk about later because I know you like lease options. But I commonly, the phrase I use to describe how much I dislike short sales is I would rather straddle and slide down a razor blade. Because man, that's when you said I got started with this boot camp and short sales, I thought, man, you got started with like the toughest thing out there. That is bad. But I'll tell you this, going back to what we talked about before this started, I really believe when this mess is over that we're in right now, that's going to be the next big thing, the short sales. I won't be doing them, but somebody will.
Right. Well, the other thing is, subject twos. So yes. I'll tell you with that, when I started, you can't go back, but just looking back for my own education, I can look back at stuff at the beginning. I didn't know anything about subject to, and I'm short sales. And with short sales, normally when you had a good house, you knew you weren't going to get it, not for a discount, not the discount that an investor needs. So I would have these people call me sometimes with a good house, and I would get, kind of disheartened in the fact that I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get it price, especially after the BPO. If I could go back and I knew sub 2, then probably been some choice sub 2s. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think short sales will be there, but so will subject 2.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, coming off of these low years of just historically low interest rates, I know when I got started with sub 2, if I could take over a loan 6 or 7%, I was tickled. And now the 2 and 3% are all over the place. So man, that's some serious cash flow right there. I know we're loving it. So yeah, really looking forward to that time when they turn some of this stuff loose. So tell us about your business model. I know you and I talked and it's changed over the years, but tell us about your specific thing that you like to do with regard to buying houses.
Yeah, so it's definitely changed. If anybody is getting started, or maybe you're even, on that path, know that it can be changed at any time. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right?
Mhm.
I'm definitely big on having a vision of things, and it's the starting with the end in mind, right?
Right.
And but sometimes when you don't, there's things you don't know, then you don't really even can't have that vision if you don't know about it. So it
Mhm.
definitely can change. So yeah, I was doing short sales. There was a lot of failing and all, but I wouldn't change that for anything. It was
Mhm.
sleepless nights and everything after I went full time. But all that got me to where I am today. And I would even say, like, some people that ask me is like, how did you, like, I love creative financing, subject to, all those things. And it's like, well, how did, when I was kind of overdoing short sales and all that stuff, is like, how did you find it? It's like, well, I really didn't know. I was just, all I knew is I was looking for something different. And sometimes that is all it takes, if you asking questions and stuff like that. And just kind of found that. I think it first started with seller finance. I think somebody sent me a podcast. I think it was Joe McCall, and they were interviewing Mitch Stephen. And that really spoke to me. Now, I don't do seller finance yet. That's a next step for me that I'll do in retirement accounts. But after that, that kind of got me down the rabbit hole of creative financing. And I found subject to and lease options, and that just really spoke to me.
Mhm. Yeah. I know when I got started investing, I determined pretty early, because I'm a really analytical, you probably are too. You strike me as that type. But I looked at everything. I had a good job, and similar to you. And I said, I want to do real estate. I've got to get out of what I do. But what do I want? What is the ideal thing? And for me, it was cash flow. That was going to replace the job income. Wholesaling seemed like another job, because you got to keep working, you got to keep flipping. And I told you, I like to travel. So when I'm gone, I still want the money coming in. But buying houses for cash flow, I knew the banks would limit me. After I buy 10, 15, 20, they're going to go, well, you owe us a lot of money. And sub two. So at that time, I learned about it. I thought, man, this is the greatest thing in the world. I can buy as many houses as I want. I just take over payments. I don't have to go to the bank. I think it's great. So yeah, I know what
Yeah,
you're talking about.
nobody was checking to see if you had 10 loans out, were they?
No, not at all. And the seller, a lot of times, especially in those, like I said, the market's changed tremendously in the last year. But prior to that, when you got 100 people a month in your county going into foreclosure, you can buy one of those houses. I mean, it's if you're willing to knock on a door, talk to a person, do whatever. Yeah, you can. If you can get belly to belly with a seller, you can buy a house. So that was super easy to do. And I was a transaction engineer for about a dozen years, and just really went to a cookie cutter model about 10 years ago. But yeah, and it's all sub two and seller finance. I think they're great. So tell me, Tom, you've been doing this now for 6 years, and the market's changed somewhat. And I know we had talked, and you said you're primarily doing lending now. But when you generate a lead for a house, what's producing the results for you? What are you doing that's bringing in leads?
As marketing goes,
Yeah.
um, recently with COVID and everything, I haven't been doing probably as much marketing as I should. One of it is because one of my biggest marketing channels was pre-foreclosure. So
Right. Yep.
you know what happened there,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But I would say that as marketing goes, pre-foreclosure, I also used to get good results with Bandit Signs. I know they get a rap, but I've got a story with that ties deeper than just real estate. It has to do with actually going out early Saturday mornings with my 14-year-old son. He's 16.
Right.
So it was a lot more than just putting out Bandit Signs, and uh, they were a good marketing source.
Mm-hmm.
But we would get out early in the morning. He would wake up with me 5 a.m. Saturday, and we talk life.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, like I said, it was a lot more than just putting out Bandit Signs. But those can get good results. I think one year that, I think it was 2018, when he helped me, instead of paying him per hour to go out with me, I told you, I said, I'll give you 1% of what I get from this. Well, that year he got a check for $710
Mm-hmm.
for 1% of it.
Right.
And part of it was funny is he actually even told me on one of the houses, I got a subject to from that too.
Mhm.
And this is good. This tells you he was listening to the conversation because I think I got a $7,000 option fee on that. So I gave him 1% of that. And he says, what about the cash flow? Do I get it? And I said, Ty, that is awesome. I said, no.
That's right. Yeah, it is great when they listen to you, though. I tell you, that's amazing. I know I used to carry my youngest around with me. My oldest wasn't too interested in real estate. My youngest, he really liked it, and we used to drill all the time. We'd go to the mailbox, the UPS store, and pick up the checks and whatnot. And we talk about. He's like, anybody didn't pay? And I'd say, well, not this time, but what happens if they don't pay? And he'd say, eviction. So yeah, that's great when they pay attention. So, and that's stuff they'll never learn in school.
Yeah, that's right. The last one, referrals.
Yeah.
Referrals are the best.
The Sub 2 Deals Show with your host, Sub 2 expert William Tingle. We'll be right back. Have you ever had a seller give you a house? It's a pretty awesome experience. If a seller wanted to give you a house today, would you know what needed to be done to make the deal happen? Would you like to learn how? The Ultimate Sub 2 Guidebook will show you exactly what you need to get those deeds and sell those houses with seller financing. Join the thousands of other investors across the country who learned how to get the deed with the Ultimate Sub 2 Guidebook. Get the Ultimate Sub 2 Guidebook today at sub2deals.com. Going. Back to the show, the Sub 2 Deals Show with your host, Sub 2 expert William Tingle.
Okay, well, how do and you hear that, referrals, and how do you think you generate a good referral business?
Well, the first thing is you've got to open your mouth. You've got to open your mouth and tell people what you do, because if people that you know don't know what you do, then they can't refer you, can they?
That's right.
Well, I think that's one of the first steps, is just letting people know what you do.
So when I worked locally in the Macon market, now I've been doing remote stuff for 10 years now, but when I worked locally, I had t-shirts, I had embroidered shirts, baseball caps, magnetics on my car. I was all out. If I went in Home Depot, I could hear somebody say, that's the house guy, because people knew who I was. And so is that what you're talking about? You do the same thing, or?
No, I don't really do that. Those are all good ideas, definitely. Mm-hmm. But I'm just talking about, friends and family, and, for someone out there that, if they're keeping quiet, they do. No, don't do that. Tell people you buy houses.
Mm-hmm.
That's even, work on your elevator speech, as they'd say.
Yeah.
Somebody knows. It's amazing, how, like one of the first houses that I ever bought, I think it was January 2016, maybe my first investment property. That one was a referral. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how did this even happen? It was a friend of our family had talked to her mom, who went to church with this is no joke.
Oh yeah.
To church with these people that their neighbors were retiring and wanted to sell their house for cash. Mm-hmm. I was like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
And I think that was my first flip, which I don't do flips anymore. I have a pattern for hating flips. I think I JV'd with on that one with a fix and flipper. He did the rehab, and I think one we made after split. I made 18.5 on it. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't bad for referral of however that went.
Oh, absolutely not. And referral doesn't cost you anything. There's no marketing dollars involved.
Yeah, I think I gave her like $500.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you're right. That's a lot cheaper than these people, whatever it is, people running their KPIs on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Massive marketing. I think some people are in the thousands of dollars to generate.
Yeah. When I have people ask me, they'll say, so they start talking about KPIs and all that stuff. Now, listen, I'm not that technical. I wasn't that smart when I got started. I would say, okay, I'm spending X per month on marketing. That's what I'm doing. Certain amount of Bandit Signs, certain amount of postcards. And as long as I have more money in the bank at the end of the month than I had at the beginning, I'm doing okay. Which brings us to the next question. I will get involved in that, but you'll see I am not technical at all about this stuff. Bandit Signs, you said Bandit Signs were a good source. Now, Tom, I saw that and I said, now, Tom, I hear 50 times a day, Bandit Signs don't work. Why would you want to use those? And I'm like, why wouldn't you? They're $1.50 a piece. You know what I mean? And they're
And
just,
you can even get them cheaper. So I'm a frugal person,
yeah.
and so I've got ways to even do them cheaper. Even
Mhm.
one guy that I'm mentoring, he was actually on a big podcast recently, and it was his first deal, and it came from Bandit Signs, and
Yeah.
he was driving for dollars, and he came to me, whatever we're talking, and I told him, I said, Blair, you're out driving for dollars already. You doing Bandit Signs? He's like, no. And he didn't have any Bandit Signs, so I had a couple hundred of a different number and a different message I hadn't used. It's not my full price offer message. It was
Right.
your house. I said, hey, take these and put them out, and he put them out and he started getting calls.
Mhm.
He told me later, he said, Tom, when you told me that, I did not, he doubted the whole thing. Man, it's not
Yeah.
work, but he goes, went ahead and did it. And he now is a believer.
Yeah. You can go out on any given day. And yes, some places have ordinances and that sort of thing. And I'm sure there are certain places around Memphis you don't want to do that. And I haven't lived there in a long
Suburbs.
time. Yeah, Collierville maybe would be likely, or Cordova. Yeah, some of those places. But most places, I'm sure there are a million of them everywhere, And if there are,
Sometimes, I think it goes in waves, and I bet you can guess why it goes in waves.
yeah,
Somebody's coming to town, probably
right.
one of those quote unquote
Yeah.
gurus, and
Yeah.
people do stuff for a little while and then stop.
Yeah. But, I would, if I were concerned about it, I'm telling you, I've always been a ask for forgiveness instead of permission type person. I'd put a few out, and I wouldn't put out 1,000 a night, but I'd put 10 or 15 out at a time and get a couple. Really, one deal will pay for a lifetime of Bandit Signs. It's just, I don't know. They work. I know they do. We've used them as recently as the last couple of years, and they will get you results. But tell us about any favorite tools that you use in the business. I thought your answer to this was interesting. I'll tell you a story about it. But you said your favorite tool is calculator.
Calculator. So I don't have a lot of tools. I know everybody wants to talk about their CRMs and all the different tools that they have, but
Right.
really have a pretty simple business. And this goes back, to the vision that I talk about. When I started out, I knew I didn't want to have a big business with employees. I used to be a manager, and I really don't like being a manager, and decided I was just going to keep it small. And I think that you can be successful in that. And really, I'd also say success is whatever anybody's personal definition of that is.
Right.
I would tell somebody starting out is, just because you see somebody trying to pitch you something and you believe that that's, they're standing in front of their Lamborghini and all that, that doesn't have to be your definition of success.
Right.
William, you and I talked about this before. For me, freedom of my time is really the most important thing. In guitar, because I started playing guitar at 13 years old, played in rock bands until I was 24. And then at some point I cut off my hair and had to get a real job.
Yeah.
Like 20 years of not really playing guitar that much. So now I've got to the point in cash flow that not working, not hustling and grinding as much as a lot of people. And now I can actually pick up the guitars now. I've got time.
Right. And you got kids at home. So, spending time with them. Yeah.
So that's another thing. Yeah, I get to see the kids. I was talking to my wife. I've got a 5-year-old. I'm surprised he's not up here. His name and I get to see him every morning. He comes up in the day. There's sometimes I'm trying to do something and he may, frustrate me, but I try to remember not to get frustrated because of why I'm doing this. And it's the time and having to be able to see them and do kind of what I want to do.
Right. Because there's so many people that just don't get that. And that was why something different was so important to me. I worked in the restaurant industry, and it's well known for being 70 plus hours a week. I would go to work when my kids were asleep, and I'd get home after they were already in bed. It was depressing. And so that's why I made a point of, after the first couple of years and we had success with investing, we traveled a ton together. We took our kids out of school, we homeschooled them. We spent all the time together, and that is something that I could never replace. You know what I mean? That time that we got to spend together.
Yeah. I don't put in those kind of hours anymore. Yeah, in IT, there was 7 different times I put in over 100 hours in a week
Yeah.
where we had, system issues or something. And I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. That's right. It is all about the freedom. And that's whatever you define it to be. If it's staying home with your family and that's what it is, then that's what it is. If it's the private jet lifestyle, hey, more power to you. But that's just never really appealed to me. So yeah.
Definitely the private jet lifestyle that you're talking about. That's the nonstop hustle.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people doing that. I think
I had a conversation recently with a student of mine, and he shares the same view that we do. He said, "I keep it small, keep it all." So, that's the way.
Yes, and also, so I'm really working a lot on. I've got a partner, and by the way, everybody that does this has a partner.
Mm-hmm.
It's Sam, Uncle Sam.
Oh yeah, sure.
He's always the partner. So I'm trying to get him to be the smallest amount of partner as I can, and that's stuff to tax-free investing. But
absolutely,
Ed, I've always kind of been the motto: it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
That's exactly right. Well, tell us, Tom, about your favorite tool is the calculator. You got to tell me some more about this. So why is this your favorite tool in your investing?
Well, definitely, in creative financing, using you're more the calculator than anything, I guess, if you're, even when I started flipping and all that, or, you're doing wholesale, it's still the calculator if you need it, but it's, you could do 70% minus repairs versus whatever, or you can, people just like, hey, 50% of whatever you think it's worth or whatever, but obviously creative financing, it gets a little more. And definitely when you're getting into notes and with sub twos, I like a lot of times to run an amortization table at, tell pretty much where somebody, as long as they didn't make extra payments and things like that, the loan balance is really have to, I still ask people, I very rarely do I ever have anybody not tell me what loan balance is. To me, like I like to say that one of two things, you either haven't built enough trust or they're not truly motivated.
Right. That's exactly right.
But at that point, usually I do a pretty good job of guessing, educating, getting on where that loan balance is.
Right.
That's where that comes in.
Well, I certainly admire you for knowing how to operate one. I'll tell you, I told you I got started with my Carlton Sheets course, and I'm telling you, when I commit to a plan, I do it. I do everything they say. And one of the things he says was, you need to go out and get this Texas Instruments T, blah blah blah, whatever. So I went to Office Depot or whatever it was and paid $50 or whatever for the little calculator. And I carried it around with me for 2 or 3 years and never took the cover off of it. You had one of those plastic covers, those hard plastic covers, and finally gave it to somebody at a Rio one time because all I'd ever used it for was a paperweight, because I didn't know how to use it. And I actually listened. I had gone to I think it was a Bill Bronchick event, and he was talking about calculating return. And he said, if you buy subject to, and you don't have to give the seller any money or make up any back payments, but you sell it with seller financing and get a down payment, you don't have to calculate a return. You got nothing in it. You're getting money from it. It's that all those E's that you would see on that calculator.
Yep.
So I said, okay, now I don't have to learn how to work that thing, but I congratulate you for knowing how, because I'm telling you, it was just too complicated for me. But that's my lack of technical ability, I suppose. Well, tell us about your most unusual deal that you had, the one with the most moving parts and the one that gave you the most grief.
Okay, well, that one, I don't have any nightmare deals, or some of these ones like a landlord that has a murder house, or I don't know, something like that. But the one that stands out that stressed me to no end and kept me literally sleepless nights was back in 2018. And this was a condo. That was a crazy year. God really taught me to trust him that year. When the first 5 months of that year, didn't do a deal. Just everything was a dead end. Other than I think I did some lending, but that was about it. To the last 7 months doing 12 deals. To a wholesale, that may not be much at all, but that 12 deals for us doing, what we know and can make out of them, that
Right.
was made for a really good year.
Oh, yeah.
But this one was a condo I got under contract, and it's like almost immediately after getting under contract, I think I was leaving there, and a guy that I met at a meetup a couple weeks before called me up. He was a newer investor. His dad, I think, I found this out later. He was a newer investor, and he was looking for a deal. I met him at a meetup, and I guess we had some connection there. I think stuff I told him resonated with him, and he wanted to reach out and talk with more. And I said, you know what? I just got this one under contract. This may be something for you. And we came to terms on it. And it was real. I think the condo was worth 130, and I think offered to him at 115, and they took it. Him and his dad wanted it, which you can't, as a newer investor, but it was really good. This condo didn't need much at all. It's probably one of the best houses I got under contract. And I've had some pretty good houses under contract, but it needed paint, maybe carpet. I think you clean the carpets. It was that good.
Mm-hmm.
So we got under contract, and I'm busy doing all kinds of other stuff. I think I'd gotten my first couple subject to deals at that time. I had a house that I was wholesaling. I was really busy, and it was a good busy. But we're going on, and where I screwed up is I thought they were cash buyers.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, but somewhere I messed up there, and turned out they weren't. They had a bunch of cash, but they were putting the cash down to finance it. And then we're coming to close. So the lady I had under contract, sweet old lady, she was moving back to Georgia, probably somewhere, I think it was maybe close to where you were in Georgia there.
Mm-hmm.
And they were counting on me to close this. Her and her sister had stage 4 cancer. That's where I'm moving back to be with family. I know some wholesalers get stuff under contract, have weasel clauses, and something happens. I couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the part I didn't say was the lender actually called me because I'm not the owner of record, right? So they're not going to lend on this because I own the home. And I was explaining. And at that point, I was going to double close because I had a $25,000 spread.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to figure out how to make this happen. What I ended up doing, I can't remember all the progressions. I went through all this, what I was going to do. I was going to even lend to him because I do lending.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is I didn't have the money at that point. I think I had 4 other loans out. And to lend to him on it, I would have needed to bring 60 to the table. He was bringing 30, and I would have had to bring 60 to create an 80 note. But I didn't have 60. And I was just trying to figure out how to get there. Well, long and short of it, what happened is a house that I was wholesaling, it was really kind of like a wholesale, but it was to another investor. He was 3 weeks late. This money should have come back in, but the money, they finally closed on this. And I got the money from that house, came in, I think, on a Tuesday. On Thursday, I'm wiring money back out to lend to this guy to be able to buy the property. But I don't even know if I did it justice telling that on how much of a nightmare this was. Because there was just no way I could let her down and not close on that.
Right.
That was just a nightmare to me, but it worked out. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't know if I did that story justice.
No, I can certainly relate. And I'm sure anybody that does wholesale deals can. And that's one of the reasons that I've done a handful of wholesale deals. They were all almost accidental. They were deals that I wouldn't have normally bought, but I was able to get it under contract so incredibly cheap. I knew somebody else would buy it, a landlord type or somebody that bought in that part of town. So I would sell it to them super cheap just to unload it, just to get it moved. And so I know what you're talking about. It's that pressure of getting something done on a super tight deadline, just like short sales. The bank contacts you and says, okay, we'll accept it. You got to close in 2 weeks. And then you're running around trying to find a buyer. So that kind of pressure just.
It worked out because I lent to him, and I think I charged him a point up front for a 6-month loan, but he wanted 9 months because in case it went 6 months in the refi.
Right.
You never give without getting. So I said, all right, if I give you another 3 months, will you give me another half point at closing? He said yes. So
Yeah.
That's still not my hard money terms. I gave him, I was very favorable to him at 1.5. I normally charge 4. And I gave him a favorable interest rate, but it put the deal together, and I got interest from him a couple months. He refied, and it was all good.
We talked the other day, and you mentioned a couple of times here that you do lend. Is it relationship-based lending? Is it only people that you know, or will you lend on a deal that makes sense to whoever?
So I would say the short answer, maybe a short answer, it is based on the asset, but a lot of them are relational. I do have it's investors maybe I know that I've been in masterminds with and stuff like that. And there are other people who are local I've met in meetups and stuff like that. So even though I don't run any credit scores and do stuff like that, I do like to know that the person has some experience and
Right.
good person.
So if somebody watched this and wanted to contact you because they had a deal, would you be open to that? Or
I would be, so I wouldn't say that I'm nationwide. I've done lending in Ohio, Missouri, Illinois, Mississippi, and Tennessee.
Okay.
So I would be open to talk to somebody and see if I could help them out.
Okay, great. All right. Well, we'll get that information from you, Tom, put it in the show notes if anybody wants to reach out to you if they've got a deal, and you'll take a look at it and might be able to help them out. Okay. So, you've been doing this for a while and you're doing it full time, and you're probably like me. I can still remember when I got started. If you could give a new investor listening to this any advice that's just getting started, what would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that one. Let's see. I can go through. I've got a list of stuff, and so much I think is not what you hear, what the world tells you. I would tell them I think there's a lot of good education out there from some gurus, but I don't know if a lot of people should listen to all that. So here's what I would say, William. I would say they need to know their why they're doing this. And I think that if your why is big enough, then they'll find a way to succeed. So I think that is important. I think they need to get educated. I think education is important. I think there's a lot of people getting educated, but there's a lot of people out there that don't know what they're doing. So education is important, but you got to take some action. So the education without action is no good. I will say I don't disagree with this. Some people say take massive action, massive imperfect action, and I'm definitely not disagreeing with them. But I would twist it a little bit and say that at least take some action. So it doesn't have to be massive action, but take action, because you got to take that first step. If you're not taking that first step, you're standing still and you're going nowhere. So at least take some action. If you're that person to take massive action, then awesome. Third, I would tell them to find what fits them, what makes them happy. Or even some investor friends that I was talking to, I think this morning, or was it last night? Run your race. You don't have to run somebody else's race, what they see. So find what makes you happy. And I think there's a lot of people that want to get into real estate and they hate their current job, right? Just like where I was at. Or they want their freedom of time, but they end up building a business they end up hating, or it sucks other times. So that's counterintuitive, right? So there are ways to make money, and there's many ways to make money in real estate. So I think they need to find a strategy that they enjoy, and then build a business that serves them, not them serving their business. That would be another key thing I'd say. And then something I think I mentioned, I've talked to you, have a vision. I think that somebody needs to have both a personal vision for their life and a business vision. So kind of like, what do they want their life to look like? And what do they want their business to look like? So you're starting with the end in mind and then work backwards, because if you have no idea what you want that to look like, how are you even going to pick the path and what's going to take you there? And then last, I would say that getting a good coach or mentor is definitely the way to get there faster. I know when I was in IT, I was kind of maybe kind of proud of myself. I read a lot of white papers. If anybody's a computer person, this is all the what they write for engineers and stuff
Mhm.
on products. And that's how I learned everything was white papers. I felt like I was self-taught and everything. And what I think I learned in real estate is that you can do that. You can learn it all yourself and be proud and all, but man, you can get there a lot quicker by having somebody that's already doing what you want to do and successful, and then duplicating what they're doing, have them show you. So that would be some of the things I can think of.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know, like I said, you and I have talked about the lifestyle thing and not getting caught up in the you have to grind 24/7. It's about the life you want to live, and you start with that and work it backwards. What do I need to get there? If 10,000 a month gives you that lifestyle, then you need to focus on the things you need to create. If you can get $400 a month in cash flow off of a deal, guess what? You need to do 25 seller financed homes. You got your 10,000, you got your lifestyle, it's all about planning it that way. And I totally agree on the learning. I see it every day in forums on Facebook and everywhere else. Oh, you don't need a course. Yeah. And listen, the worst course I've ever bought offered some value. It may not have been much, but it had something. And you don't need a course. You don't need a teacher. Don't pay anybody. You get it all on YouTube and, on the internet, man, but you just don't know what you don't know. So you have to be careful for sure.
Well, yeah, and a course can't cover, everything that you're going to come, what's going to happen. That's where experience comes into play. And
Right.
I've learned is it doesn't always have to be your experience. It can be
Mhm.
someone else's experience. So that
Yeah.
a coach comes into play, or even, well, you've heard of OPM, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Other people's money. You ever heard of PE?
Other people's experience.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
we can either learn the hard way,
yeah.
which we will. You will learn some,
Mhm.
but the other way is to learn from OPE.
Yeah. That's and that's really the more valuable, your experience, your time, the things you've already been through. And I know having a coach, my wife and I, we just hired a coach 2 weeks ago to help us with some business organization, because when you try to run multiple businesses, which we do, we have, an educational side, a teaching side, actual real estate. And then she has a business that she had when I met her. And man, it's hard to stay focused and get everything done you got to do. Sometimes you just got to call somebody else that knows more. And some people are just so hesitant. We were talking the other day about how you run into people that think nothing of dropping 50,000 on 2 or 4 years of college and massive debt. But you talk to them about a $5,000 6-month training program with somebody who'll teach you step by step 20 years of experience to do something. And they go, oh no, man, that's outrageous. They just don't, they know the cost of everything and the value of nothing is really what it comes down to. So I totally agree. Man, Tom, I really appreciate you coming on with us today. I'm sure you've given a lot of value to our listeners, and I've really just enjoyed talking to you about your business and what you do, and looking at your guitar collection, which is amazing.
And I didn't talk about it. I'm actually in the short-term rentals now. So if anybody's in the Memphis area, they can look it up. We have some Airbnb property.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Tell everybody how to get in touch with you if they want to talk to you about if they've got a deal or something, an Airbnb property, or if they're in the market for lending. If they want to talk to you and let you take a look at the deal, how can they reach
Yeah,
you?
it used to be smoke signals were the best way, but I really don't do those anymore. So
Okay.
probably I could probably give my phone number, but I probably prefer email, and then
Yeah.
then we could do phone.
Okay.
My best email to reach me at would be tomely@gmail.com. So TOMELY@gmail.com.
Okay. To not waste your time, do you have any upfront criteria on what you'll lend on? That, like, I don't lend on condos, I don't live on mobile homes, what have you?
Yeah, there you go. Usually I would say I don't lend on anything I don't want to take back. I've never had to take anything back at this point, but that's kind of it. It would be also I lend the way I want to buy. So if you get a bad deal, I'm not going to lend on it.
Right.
You know, so
That is a great rule. In fact, that is the first rule of private lending someone taught me years ago. Don't ever lend on anything that you wouldn't be happy to own.
Yep,
Because you might own it.
They don't. So, like I said, so far I have, but I've lent to some good people, and nobody's let me down at this point. I had a couple scary ones that some sleepless nights wondering if it was going to work out, but in the end, everything worked out.
Great. Well, so we'll get that in the show notes, and maybe some folks will call you about that. Okay, Tom, thanks again for being on the show. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, William. Appreciate you.
Well, Sub-Tours, that's it for this episode of the Sub-2 Deal Show. You can find the show notes and a complete transcript along with everything else at sub2podcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast. And we would also love it if you would join our free Facebook Subject To group, sub2forum.com. So until next time, keep learning, keep talking to sellers, and you will buy some houses.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sub-2 Deal Show with William Tingle. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit sub2deals.com, on Facebook at Sub2 Deals. We'll catch you next time.